and it was a great Christmas tradition, and like we still laugh about it. But it definitely, it kind of same thing of like you have that deadline of like, oh shit, I think it's done for the
Right.
holidays.
Yeah.
And so again, like kind of how do we like as people like know that about ourselves and like intentionally kind of put those things into our path so that we do, because we do sometimes need that like push to get outside. And for some people it's like running like 5Ks or marathons or
Right.
whatever, to kind
Yes.
of push them to
Yeah.
do that. And so, you know, whether it's athletic or not, or just externally kind of finding that thing, that drives you
And
and pushes you to perform and consistently get
yeah.
involved with, whether it's a relatedness or a skill. But like I think we as humans are very designed to do those things and connect in those
And one
ways.
of the things that I'm like questioning constantly at this point is like what I'm doing career wise. And, like how, what do I do from here to like gain more information? Because to gain more information for like the sake of gaining more information is just this very vague, open goal that ends up being not very motivating. And then, what I feel like is I feel like I then fall short of that like mastery piece that you were talking about. Right. So then I'm just like a guy who knows a couple of things, or at least that's how I feel, right? Like I'm a dude who like knows some stuff. I practice okay medicine, like nothing bad happens, like I have okay outcomes, right? Like, but that's not very satisfying. So I don't know, like, how do I transform that? Because like within my own career at this point, I don't, well, within the practicing side, I just don't have anything like that anymore. And so then I feel very stuck. And I could also imagine that there's many people who are practitioners who feel like they're in the same place, like without really identifying what's next. So I don't know what to do about that. Help.
And I think that's where you start to observe, right? Like you're at this kind of stagnant point of like, I don't know. And like find, you know, over the course of a week or whatever in your world equates to a week as
Oh,
several shifts in a row. If
yeah.
it was a normal person's Monday through Friday, what would that be to you?
Right.
And
Yeah.
just like
Tuesday and Wednesday. That's it.
observe
Yeah.
your mental state during shifts of like what are the things that when you have to do them you're like I don't wanna, and what are
Mm.
the things that you kind of find your safe self in those meditative, that flow state of like, oh okay, there's kind of this thing there. And observe yourself and just be a scientist on yourself, and you are your own subject.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
find the elements of medicine that you do find yourself kind of losing track of time doing. And just for whatever your next string of shifts, like, I don't know, keep a little notebook with you and just write down when you're feeling really like, whoa, that was cool. And when you're like, God,
Mm.
that sucked. Like, I don't want to do that
Yeah.
drudgery thing, because those become your strengths are the things that give you strength, and your weaknesses are the things that drain you. I think a lot of, and that was Marcus Buckingham's work kind of pointing that out of, you know, it's not necessarily what you're good or bad at is your strength or your weakness, because if it's something that gives you joy even though you suck at it, it doesn't mean it's a weakness, right? It gives you
Hmm.
strength to do that thing. And so finding that in
That's
your
really
own world,
interesting. Huh.
yeah, of like what gives you strength, um, versus what drains you, and just observe those for a period of time, and be a scientist again. Your own, you are
Yeah.
your own subject, and say, what is it that I find myself, gravitating towards, and what do I find myself, you know, shying away from, and then follow the things that you gravitate towards and dig a little deeper. And how do you add more of that? How do you get better at that? How do you enhance that thing that you are deriving
Is that
fulfillment
the
from?
red threads thing that you're talking
Red threads,
about? Is that
yeah,
where the, yeah.
those
So
are the
it's like
red
those
threads.
are the pieces that you like connect to or connect you to like your the things that give you strength or like your values or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said if like 20% of what you're interacting with are associated with those like red threads, then you're what more likely to find satisfaction in what you're doing or what?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, I feel like that's I mean, that feels right. Because at any point when surely in any profession or I mean, anything that you do on a consistent basis, you're going to run into this sort of, a blockade, a stagnancy, a plateau, or whatever. And it's about sort of figuring out, like, okay, well, now what? And you can either continue doing it in exactly the way that you've been doing it ad nauseum, which isn't necessarily, in my opinion, like a recipe for success and happiness, because at some point you're just you're not going to gain a lot of satisfaction from that, or you have to figure out like, well, what do I have to change in order to either keep doing this job or change into something else or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, because even in general practice, presumably, like general practice is like the closest thing to like the 9 to 5 model or wellness, I suppose, or whatever. So like even in this thing where it's like I'm going to do basically this thing from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, forever, until I retire. Like there's got to be those things. It's not actually going to be the same thing every day. It's like when you reach your point of stagnancy, like what do you change? Like what do you dive back into? Find out your red threads and like adjust from there,
Yeah.
presumably.
And then I think also to think about the to then go jump from over to like the Simon Sinek world of the infinite versus finite games. And I think for so long, we were as vet students, like very much in finite world. Like we got to do all this
Right.
stuff in undergrad because that's going to get us into vet school. And vet school, we got to do all this stuff so we can graduate and become a vet and keep our license.
Right.
And then we lose that thing.
Yeah.
Like we've been playing finite games for um,
Yeah.
years and years and
Here's
years.
the
And
information for these 9 lectures. Learn it, take the test. That is
yeah,
it.
did I do
Now
it?
move
Yes,
on.
check, 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 and now
Right.
we're in a career that is an infinite game of like, what am I deriving joy from? And so balancing that and recognizing what are the things that you do derive that satisfaction from, and how are you quote unquote winning? Are you ahead or are you behind in the kind of infinite